and all of that, one of the relevant ones when it comes to engagements with the UK in this case. Now, today, when you ask the ordinary Ghanaian, I'm sure they may have different views, but for you gentlemen, what's the essence of the Commonwealth of Nations to, let's say, the Ghanaian person who is in the market, the gentleman who's in school, the one who has no high diplomatic engagements with the UK, or really has not engaged at the level of the Commonwealth before?
I think that, first of all, the essence of the Commonwealth is huge. Huge in the sense that it creates an opportunity for countries within the Commonwealth to network and to see allies in each other in terms of promoting trade around issues of security, issues of governance. And so basically the essence of the when we talk about the Commonwealth, for the ordinary Ghanaian, for me, it's an opportunity where Ghanaian citizens can actually travel and go to the UK. Ghanaian citizens are living freely. I think there are about close to thousands of Ghanaians. If you look at Ghanaians in the diaspora, actually those in the UK, it's huge. It's one of the largest across the world. And so there's one big opportunity because those that are living in the UK are able to, work, and then there's foreign remittances and what have you. There are bigger opportunities where people can actually travel through tourism. So we have both Ghanaians and then citizens from the UK coming alike. And then there's also a bigger aspect when we are talking about prosperity for both Ghanaian citizens and then UK citizens. So there's actually everything for everyone and in joining the Commonwealth and being members of the Commonwealth.
Okay, it sounds interesting, but you schooled in the UK.
Yes.
Did you get a sense that the Ghanaian people, even there, were enthused about the Commonwealth of Nations and they felt they were part and that it affected them? Their connections with the UK, was it at the level of Commonwealth? Because the Commonwealth of Nations really presents equal nations interacting in this case. Was that the same feeling among Ghanaians in the UK?
What I could say, at least from a personal background, a lot of people that I have known growing up would have, everyone knows who the Queen is, right? Whether it's in Ghana or in the UK, you might not know much, but you know who the Queen is. So there's some kind of celebrity attached to that whole aspect. We remember from when she visited during Nkrumah's times, our grandparents have spoken about it, our parents have spoken about it. So everyone has that slight affinity towards them. But what does it mean to us today? You probably go on the streets somewhere in Kokomili and ask the 5-year-old walking around who Prince Charles is. He might not know. And so that's why I think this visit, in the light of what's happening around the world in the political economy, Brexit, as the UK is negotiating their way out of the EU, relationships such as the one with the Commonwealth suddenly matter again. And so what I want, leaving this interview, every Ghanaian to understand is that, look, they're here for a reason. They're not here just to take pictures and drink tea with our president.
Okay,
There's
so
a reason why they're here,
and
we should make sure that we take full advantage of that.
You mentioned that point, and I think many have also complained about how the Commonwealth has engaged, unlike, for example, the UN and other bodies that devise structures that have powers that influence policies in states and all of that. The Commonwealth has been merely, some will say, a club of a sort of nations with no strong tie to force countries to do what is right and all of that. Even though it has ideals, that's without doubt. The Charter is pretty clear about the ideals of the Commonwealth in this case. Mere club?
Yeah, I don't think it's enough for you to describe it as a mere club. I think it's beyond that. It's an organization where countries are seen as equals. You are not. There's no boss in that sense. They are equal. So every country has the ability to speak freely and make opinions heard. But in terms of the issue about that, we're also talking about the sovereignty of states. So you would be mindful in terms of how you go about interfering in other countries.
But there's a general shift in international politics. We are talking about moving from non-intervention to non-interference in this particular case. You don't see the Commonwealth play any of these roles.
Well, they do, because there are two things. So we're talking about non-intervention. We're also talking about the need for cooperation. So there are two angles of it when you look at the issue around international relations. So there are more engagements that are being done, basically on cooperation. So you have governments meeting and discussing very important things that you will not know around conflicts. We're talking about security issues around Africa. There are things happening within the region, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, that the Commonwealth countries are actually playing an active role and resolving and bringing peace to these countries. So indeed, I won't want to call it an ordinary club. I think it's bigger than that.
So I've seen the Commonwealth observers actually in countries go issue statements that are really of no effect. It's not binding. The UN organizations virtually don't see it as the directive for them to follow in this case. I mean, it looks good, like an ideal of a kind that you have to follow. Right. There's also the criticism in this case that the Commonwealth of Nations is merely trying that it has its own set of ideals of democracy, of human rights, which it forces down the throat of states by way of cooperation. And this is tied to aid and trade in so many ways that makes it very difficult for, let's say, those of us in Sub-Saharan Africa or in any part of Africa that have a different appreciation and understanding of democracy.
I'll just actually step in on his last point.
Yeah.
I think the ideology is actually quite important. You know, having something that is an ideal. If we look today at what's happening in the wider world, our friends in the US are turning everything that we thought was normal around. So having an arrangement such as the Commonwealth, where there's different countries coming together for shared values, it does matter today, if I would say more than ever, you know, given what's happening in the rest of the world. So
but beyond the validating elements of it, I mean, I'm talking about, so if the Ghanaian today want to prioritize his needs or her needs, the ideals of a body of such sort will be not so relevant to the person. The interest the person will be in, the interest of the Ghanaian will be, so commercial. What do I directly benefit? How is the Commonwealth promoting trade between Ghana and the UK or any of these other countries that are within its remit, so that I would know that merely because my state belongs to it, I am advantaged and it is to my good.
I'm happy to step on this a bit as well. I mean, I worked for a brief stint at the UK-Ghana Chamber of Commerce in the same building as Abdul. And this year alone, I think we've had at least 3 engagements in London, here in Accra. We've had senior government delegations from the UK coming alongside a host of business leaders between both countries coming. There's a huge interest right now as to whether that's been followed through. As to whether that's been followed through, that's another case altogether. But I do know that, again, with China and with some of the other BRICS and other leading figures on the multilateral stage right now, there is some kind of competition brewing. So there's definitely, you know, they're definitely interested.
Okay, I'll come back to this point. Sure. I'm sure we have this conversation continue, but let me go straight to the airport where my colleague Maxwell Ababa is on standby for us. And Maxwell, if you can hear me, what's currently happening there?
Well, Raymond, if you can hear me from here, we're on the tarmac right now, and the plane just landed some minutes ago, let me just say 3 minutes ago. We have all dignitaries carefully positioned here waiting to receive Prince Charles, His Royal Highness Prince Charles. We also have with here top police officers, top security officers here on the ground. If you come here to the Kotoka International Airport, all you see is the Union Jack and then the Ghana flag as well. Carefully hoisted here. Walking towards the plane right now is a Speaker of Parliament, Professor Mike Okwe, walking carefully to go and welcome His Royal Highness Prince Charles. Also here is the High Commissioner, the British High Commissioner to Ghana, Ian Walker. He's also here. We've seen him here. We've also seen some top officers of the British High Commission also here. Now, walking all the way, traveling, I should say, driving to the Kotoka International Airport, we saw loads of students in buses waiting on the shoulders of the road. I mean, they were resting. We are told that they will be lining up the streets to wave the Ghana flag and then the Union Jack to welcome His Royal Highness Prince Charles. You know, he was in Gambia just some days ago before his getting here. He's expected to also be in Nigeria. The last time that His Royal Highness was in Ghana was in the year 1977, and in that video put out by the British monarchy, he spoke fondly about how he wants to, you know, listen to high life and then hear more of Afrobeats. He also spoke fondly about the last time that he visited about 40 years ago. He talked about visiting places like Lagos, Kumasi, and then Accra, and of course, that is what his itinerary is going to be like. Right now, we are waiting for him to touch down, exchange pleasantries with all the dignitaries here. Later, he's going to move to the Jubilee House. Then from the Jubilee House, he'll be moving to the Osu Military Cemetery, where they'll be laying some wreaths in respect to some people, some Ghanaians who passed on during the First and then the Second World War. I have with me here the Director of Operations in charge of the Ghana Police Service, Kwesi For. We want to talk to him and find out from him what the security arrangement, really is. Let's get closer and have some brief interactions with him. Sir, you're welcome to JoyNews.
Thank you.
Okay. Are you able to tell us the security arrangement, for this visit, especially for, today we see a lot of police officers around them ensuring that there is order?
Thank you. The police, we've done our best putting police officers from here on the ceremonial route and every place of interest to the principal.
Okay. Are you able to tell us the number of men who are ensuring order here and then other parts of, the ceremonial stretch, I should say?
We have required number and we are up to task.
You are up to task. Okay. Kwesi For does not want to talk much today. Okay. Anyway, thanks so much for, talking to us. So you just heard from the Director of Operations for the Ghana Police Service, Kwesi For, telling us about the security arrangement. He really does not want to give much, information, and that is what has been the situation, here. Really, sometimes difficult to get information because security has to be tight. I mean, walking in here, if you do not have a press accreditation, you would not be able, to come in here because you have to make sure that everything is in place. I mean, in terms of, security. So right now, we are waiting. The Speaker of Parliament, Professor Michael Kwe, is waiting for His Royal Highness Prince Charles to come down from the plane. You can see in your shot right now the Ghana flag carefully positioned there at some part of the plane. It's more of celebration of Ghana's relationship, with the United Kingdom here, and that's what we saw from the stretch when we were coming here to the Kotoka International Airport.
And many thanks to you, Maxwell Agbaba, there, right from, and if you can still see those visuals on the television set you're watching right now, you are convinced that currently we will soon be having the Prince of Wales and the wife Camilla stepping out of that airplane, then joining us and touching down on the soil of the Republic of Ghana for the second time, and also having to engage the people who are representing the state there. And we still see the Speaker of Parliament dressed up with other representation from the legislature there, together with other state officials. I see protocol officers of the state and security officers also lined up and ready and willing to receive the man who is an important institution, which is almost 53 states belonging to that. That is the Commonwealth. And we here in studios have been having a conversation on the Commonwealth, its relevance to you, and also whether or not it's one of those post-colonial institutions seeking, among other things, to entrench what Nkrumah will call, what they call it, imperialism of a sort. Because ideals of states differ. The aspirations of the Ghanaian might not be the same as that of the British in this particular case. The complaint from those who are sometimes opposed to international integration institutions of this sort is, why do they seek to impose, it could be through subtle means, impose their interest and what their real motives or what they consider to be human rights and other things are on we who may be very different from them? I'll come to you because you are making the point where we transition to go talk to Maxwell out there. It's something we'll be doing consistently, so we get to know every single minute of what's been happening there, and we bring it live to you, to out there, listeners and viewers at this time.
Sure. I would say the job of any state and any head of state is to further their national agenda, right? So if the UK, when in negotiations with Ghanaian leaders, is trying to progress its agenda. That's absolutely normal. It's our duty and the duty of our leaders to protect our interests and also further them out there on the international stage. That's all
I get that, but the expectation is that there will be some conscience of a sort, especially when you are dealing with a country that you are in a grouping with, let's say the Commonwealth, which has specific aspirations and all of that. It cannot be to the detriment of the other country. I'm sure you agree to that.
Absolutely. And they go, I believe the idea is that to go on universal human rights. So that's a lot of the stuff that we hear that we don't necessarily always adhere to, even though we are signed up to many charters. So I don't know. What do you think,
so
Abdul?
I'll come to you, Abdul, on this one. I mean, I don't know. From the political office, are there questions that always come to you that what we are in some form of an organization? Organization has interest in specifically what it wants to do. But it looks like when it comes to these relationships, it is always to the detriment of the African.
Well, I would beg to differ. I don't think that overall the essence of the Commonwealth is to impose anything on anybody. Like I said earlier on, that the essence of the Commonwealth is about shared values and then championing things that we all believe as important. And so it's a platform where nations meet as equals.
Okay.
I continue to state that.
Even though the concept of equal states is pretty much...
It's about sovereign states meeting and then discussing about things that concern them. And ideally, every discussion that is taking place at the Commonwealth is something that benefits everybody across board. So
ideally.
Yes. So all members of the Commonwealth do benefit.
So if I push you to tell me the reality and not the ideal situation, what would you say?
Well, one of the big things I would talk about is in terms of security. It's key.
Security.
So the UK and other countries come together who are part of the Commonwealth, then work around security and making sure that, so for example, interventions in other countries, not interventions per se, I'm saying, sorry, but I mean like when there are conflicts around and affected, or conflicts or disaster situations that affect Commonwealth countries, you find out that all Commonwealth countries are quick to support. So I see it as an opportunity where countries meet and to discuss global issues and things that matter the most. Trade, security.
You start with security, and you also talked about where disaster. We have had our fair share of specific ones.
Yeah.
Did we get help, as in Ghana here?
Well, I mean, there've been various degrees of support. It's not everything that would come
out in the open and actually known to many.
So there are more, in-camera meetings and things that happen that you might not be privy to on the public. But literally, the UK and other Commonwealth countries are at the top of their game, supporting each other. So I see the Commonwealth as a network that is quite beneficial, a network that is useful in terms of looking at how we cannot promote issues. Look, there are various issues I want to talk about, and it's quite broad. Apart from the security and the trade issues that I've talked about.
So let me not interrupt you unduly, but this time around, if you see what's on your screens currently, is the Prince of Wales and the wife following in that particular screen there. He's descending step by step, getting down to where he finally touches on the soil of the Republic of Ghana. This is the time we've been waiting for all this while. And we get the Speaker of Parliament getting to meeting with other officials of the state. And I see he's currently in an interaction with the Speaker. Previously was the UK High Commissioner to Ghana and also some officers of the State Protocol Department. And now he's shaking hands with the Ghanaian delegation who were there to meet him. The others who are following him too, as you can see out there. So we should be able to follow this keenly. I also see him interacting with other state officials, those who are assembled specifically for this purpose. And if you heard early on, Elton told us that the Flagstaff House, the Jubilee House to be clear, is the place that he'll be heading to right away. That place is currently being put in the best of shapes for this to happen. And of course, usually there is a welcoming note given to him when he arrives. The people who represent the states at the airport get to speak to him and welcome him in a nice way. They get to tell him more about what's likely to happen as part of his itinerary right away, and he gets to interact with them. And of course, I see the highest ranking officer of the state there being the Speaker of Parliament who leads the legislature in this country. And I can see others too. I can see other state representatives equally lined up to receive, and I see those who are clad fantastically in the traditional kente cloth there. Some have used it in making their own apparel. That's not like the cloth in this particular case, but this is what's currently happened there. So the day and the time we are expecting all this world, actually happened right now. We having the people that were supposed to be waiting for since morning coming in right away at this particular point in time. So we'll go back to that place, show you what's happening there again, and get Maxwell to give us details of what's going to happen right from there. So they are currently working from the tarmac to when it gets to now go to the airport and get to be taken to the Jubilee House in this particular case. And if you see them there, the woman under the umbrella is the wife, is the lady that many of you have heard about. This clearly is one of the visits that she's made to Africa, but in her case first to the Republic of Ghana in this particular case. So the royal visit we told you about Prince Charles and also the Duchess of Cornwall arriving here in Ghana is finally here. And you can see it right on your screens. And later on, we'll be telling you more about this. But in studio, we've been having a conversation about the institution that he's currently leading. And let's be clear, this man is said to be the replacement of the Queen. Touch wood if anything happens anytime soon. That is why he's very important to this nation and also to the relationship between Ghana and the UK at this particular point in time. So this is what you get to see at this point in time. We will surely will be getting you more of what's happening there as they get chauffeur driven straight to the office of the President of the Republic of Ghana, which has spent virtually the entire week preparing for this all-important day and the events that should follow. Let's not get it wrong. This is one of the few events you have happening in a decade or beyond. Because last time, of course, it's been almost 3 decades since we saw this happen in this country. The last time it happened was in 1977. And that's how instructive this is going to be for us and the engagement that's supposed to follow. I mean, we're talking about the Commonwealth, and it's also important that we talk about the Commonwealth. But there's this part of a relationship with a colonial master, which is transitioned into a cooperative relationship, which has trade and all the other parts in there. You talk about Ghanaians who are in the UK. You talk about that strong bond between Ghana and the UK in many forms. There are names in Ghana which are originally from the UK, which shows you how we've grown into a state with relationship and all of this. Let's talk about how we can push this relationship forward through the Commonwealth in this particular case. Yes. So to make it more meaningful to the people, and I'm sure for all integration institutions, there's always a complaint that it is always left at the level of high diplomats, presidents, and the people there to make the ordinary Ghanaian understand and they feel the effect of the Commonwealth in this time. What should we do? Well,
I think that, like I was telling you before, like I mentioned, I talked about security, I talked about trade. There are bigger ones that I haven't even mentioned. That's about education. Okay. You know, there's a Commonwealth scholarship, which there are a lot of Ghanaians that have actually benefited from this scholarship. Yeah. They've gone to the UK, they've studied. Myself, I'm a beneficiary of the Chevening Scholarship, which is a UK government scholarship program. I'm sure you know people like Bernard Avley.
Yes. And, I know my colleagues here and some others who have also been beneficiaries of it.
So the relationship is quite broad. It's beneficial to citizens, apart from the issues around immigration, benefits around immigration, ability to travel within the Commonwealth countries, and freedom of voting and all those kind of things. The essence of the Commonwealth is about education. Okay. And once citizens are educated, they help to develop their own economies. So these are key issues. And you can see how Commonwealth scholars are performing in Ghana. You can see how Chevening scholars are performing in Ghana.
To your mind, they have been of major impact on the Ghanaian economy and the other sectors.
We are talking about people like Dr. Kumbo and others. So they are quite great people who have benefited from these kind of relationships. So I really see it as a major platform where countries are equal and then have equal say and equal vote, regardless of your size. Regardless of the size of your territory.
Okay, it's interesting. I mean, that element he talked about, beneficiaries, starting specifically, also because you are with the London School of Economics, so interesting when I came to you on the education part. How has the corporation been mindful of your experience?
So, touching on what he said as well, there's various other aspects that both countries have come together to achieve. For instance, I know the British Council does quite a lot with creative arts. So, infrastructure and supporting maybe poets, musicians, all the local creatives in Ghana to be at a standard where they can perform internationally. So they do a lot of those stuff. Youth entrepreneurship is another big one that's happening. DFID runs a program called Engine, which I've actually been in before, that supports young Ghanaian entrepreneurs to be able to develop their business plans from a more of a trade point of view than aid. Even though it's a development organization, they're trying to build capacity so that you can also trade globally. Because the thing is, it's not that they're only doing it out of benevolence or the goodness of their hearts. What the UK is also looking to do is to strengthen other economies, emerging economies, to be able to have a future market, basically. So
now, I was telling you earlier on about the top export destinations of Ghana: Switzerland, the United Arab Emirates, India, China, and the Netherlands. On the other side, when it comes to the top import origins of Ghana, China is leading. The United Kingdom is number 2 on that particular list. The United States is number 3. India and Belgium are in that particular line. The import-driven nature of this particular trade relationship, do you think with greater cooperation it can change?
Absolutely. And again, as to what I was saying, the reason why some of these programs have been established is because the UK realizes that in order to continue the growth of their economies, they will need to access into more emerging markets and make sure those markets are stronger for a longer
Especially
time.
with the strength of China on the seas.
Exactly.
Now. Yeah.
So that's why programs such as Engine and DFID and all of those guys are redirecting some of their funds towards strengthening the local economy. There's a lot of things that the DIT, Department for International Trade, also runs programs to support SMEs in the country. The UK GCC is making sure that there's still trade between small enterprises here in Ghana as well as in the UK. So there's a lot more on the conversation happening along
There's a
those
question
lines.
I'll ask you about the current wave of nationalism that's happening across the world and how that impacts commonwealth relationships and other states' relationship like Ghana and that of the UK. But I was asking about export and imports, and trade is important. States have always been interested in trading because you want to expand your economy and make sure it works. The trade between Ghana and UK is predominantly towards the good of the UK. If you look at export, import in this particular case,
Well,
can we push up the exports? The Ghanaian market can push up to the UK the way it ought to be done. Remember that EU had lots of restrictions that prevented vegetables and other things. Recently, we were told that we are being sorted out and we can still do the exportation of these products. Is there still room for Ghanaian products to be exported to the UK so that we can improve our economy in that direction?
I think there's already room, and a lot of things are happening. I'm surprised you didn't mention Blue Skies. The drink.
Yes, but
so
a drop in the ocean to be fair.
Not a drop in the ocean.
Yes.
There are other ones, apart from the fact that things might not be going in larger numbers like what you see towards China and others. We're also talking about UK businesses that are literally here and helping out in terms of services. We're also talking about the construction sector and what have you. And so there's a big effort that the UK government is doing to support local businesses and entrepreneurs in Ghana to be able to match up to the standards and getting a lot of their products into the UK. So I see it as a major, there's actually things that are happening. So it's on the ascendancy. So gradually it will get to a stage where we'll probably be getting 50-50 on issues around
does the UK
exports.
fear the emergence and the strength of China on the continent?
I won't say the UK fears the emergence of China. It's about competition. And so it's all about how to pitch. Everybody is making an effort.
Is the UK worried about that particular emergence?
I don't think they need to be. There's a need to be. They don't need to be worried because there's a platform. You know, in the world, we're talking about countries competing with each other.
Yes.
That's what the world order is about. So it's about putting in more effort and matching up, or even exceeding others. So I see that as an opportunity than to rather call it as a threat, because when you are in a competitive environment, then it really calls your attention to actually advance more and improve more and get a lot of things done.
But
so
to be fair, the UK has taken notice of this particular impact of China on the continent and more importantly on countries like Ghana.
Absolutely.
For example, I mean, if Ghana wanted 50 billion in some form of loans from the UK, it would have been a very long conversation. But it looks like we are making headway with China on that particular matter. I mean, what we are going to give for it is another debate altogether. But that is where many are saying the evidence is what shows that one is leading or not leading in this particular case.
Yeah, so in terms of leadership, like I said, UK is happy for competition.
Yes.
So to see China and other countries equally trading, and that's the process. We want to see Ghana happily trading with other countries as well, including the UK.
And so far, you don't think it's to the detriment of that?
No,
relationship?
I don't think that's the issue at all. I think that is what you would see.
I mean, beyond the diplomatic talk, I want to understand what you don't think.
No, this is not about diplomacy. So I think the importance of the thing is I see the world at a stage. That's why I'm happy about the whole thing about Beyond Aid.
Yes.
Because it's
Ghana
about
Beyond Aid.
Yes, and then it's about countries actually emerging to become greater. So it's about competing for the world resources. So nation states are competing and they are working hard. So it's an opportunity. You don't see somebody bringing in the best models of cars or the best model of a product as a threat. Okay. It means that you should work hard to exceed that or make yours more acceptable to the countries that you relate with. So that's what UK is going to be doing. It continue to work hard and to improve relations between its allies and friends, as well as Ghana, for example. That you can see this major visit is one of the things that have added a significant boost to our relationship. Ghana does matter to the UK, and it's an opportunity for us to continue to work, look at the future together.
The Ghana Beyond Aid point that he made there, this is effectively to say, and the president made perhaps the most poignant point when he met the French president some time ago. The point pretty clear is that we cannot continue in this relationship. We have to redefine it. So a state is seeking to be independent, not being reliant on it. I mean, it's not cut off completely, as has been explained, but not being reliant on aid from other states. There was a point in our history in this country that 40% of our budget, especially for critical areas like education, for health, were supposed to be provided by aid. So if there's a slight change in the aid arithmetic, then we have a problem. Then we're unable to meet the standards that we want to give to our people out there. It sounds like a good idea, big one. But do you get clarity on exactly what ought to be done and what is supposed to be done in this country to pursue that?
I mean, I'm not an economist or anything, but in my lay knowledge, a lot of things that we've tried to do in the past has been based around import substitution. But I do think, realistically speaking, what we do need to do, and I was discussing this with somebody yesterday in the field, is to boost our exports to match, not to try and necessarily reduce imports. Because if you look at it globally, we are competing with the likes of China when it comes to manufacturing, which honestly we just can't do so great at. So if we do try and increase our exports to places like the UK and the EU in agriculture, in services, that's probably a better bet for us, as well as obviously the knowledge economy too. So building capacity in human development, making sure that, as we've had recently with the free SHS program, more people are educated enough to be able to join the global human resource pool for talent.
This is quality education to ensure that the kind of people you actually produce are competitive enough so that they can compete with people from other parts of the country, because if there's no quality in the education, really there'll be a problem with that.
And the world at large.
Okay. I'll come back to you, but let me now go to bring you some thoughts of a man that you should know about. Ambassador Agriolins has been a Ghanaian diplomat for almost 4 decades. He actually is a competent person when it comes to Ghana-UK relations. We'll hear him. We'll come back and continue the conversations after the Ambassador Extraordinaire speaks. Okay, certainly, we'll be going to the Jubilee House. If you see the visuals on the screen, we have cameras at the Jubilee House for you, letting you know that historic visit. And let's be clear, some 30 years ago, the President of the Republic of Ghana and also those who were very active in the affairs of the state, the Chief Justice, they were all related in some way to the President of the Republic of Ghana today, Nana Addo Akufo-Addo. I'm talking about his father, Edward Akufo-Addo, at that particular time. Now, what you should know is that this relationship is supposed to foster the greatness that Ghana is supposed to have when it comes to its relations with UK. Especially, we expect the President to talk about the Ghana Beyond Aid issues and how that's going to be fully pursued. We will bring you up-to-the-minute visuals from the office of the President at the Jubilee House where we get that. But first, let's talk about what Agriolins Ambassador thinks about the relationship between these two countries and how far we've come.
My personal connection with the United Kingdom may be said to have started when I was at university, and we had a gap year in France. I read French, and then for every citizen of the Commonwealth, UK was a metropolis. And remember that for most of our people who lived in the UK at the time, they were actually equipped with not just Gold Coast passports, but British passports. We had only become independent in 1957. And my first visit to the UK was in 1959. And therefore, it was one of great emotional satisfaction. Well, they say in my part of Cape Coast, Brinyani John, our overseas trips took place in the UK. Remember that for years in the past, only a trickle of people had gone to the United States, like our first, some of our senior citizens, exemplified by Osajifo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who went to study there, and several others. But that belongs to another story. So this is as far back as I go when it comes to my relation, shall I say, contact with London. I took an interest in the UK, personally. It was my predilection. It was my destination even for tourism. But I used that opportunity to study. As you must have noticed, I studied also in Oxford. And this is, again, a dimension of my experience and relationship with the UK. Now you ask me the question, how do I evaluate and assess Ghana's relations with the UK? It's historical. It started with colonial relations, and it has never left us. It is something embedded in our historical, political, economic, social, and literally the concept of the Commonwealth. We were born into the Commonwealth. It has been a historical, cultural cross-fertilization, or let me put it another way, miscegenation. The Commonwealth has become almost like an informal, functional axis of cooperation. We cannot say that we are compelled in that relationship. We are all equal within the Commonwealth. And if there is any attempt, or there was any attempt by Britain to compel any member of the Commonwealth, as I can cite to you, to influence things within the Commonwealth, it has become a persistent problem.
Well, folks, that's James Eman Kwesi Agri, and so we're clear, Orleans. He's actually one of Ghana's foremost ambassadors. He's represented Ghana in the UK before. He's been to several other countries. He's also taught in the parliamentary school before, trained, and also been one of the people in our parliaments as clerk in times past. He's a diplomat extraordinaire, talking about the relationship between those two countries. He ends on the note, a very instructive note, that the relationship between countries at the Commonwealth level is one of equals. There is no imposition. There's no position of ideals and ideas, and perhaps, of course, some have also criticized this as one of the issues and problems with having an institution like that. But we know for now that the prince has finally arrived at the Jubilee House, and we'll be bringing visuals of that pretty soon. The prince has finally arrived at the Jubilee House. The interaction we've been looking out for since morning, that engagement that the Flagstaff House of the Republic of Ghana has been doing, their preparation is finally being put to test now to see how they engage through the presidency of the Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo government with the prince in this particular case. So we shall be bringing you some more detail as and when we know the details of what the conversation has been and all of that. And we have correspondence and visuals right from the Jubilee House pretty soon for you on our screens. But in studio here, I do have with me Bradley and also Abdurazak. And these gentlemen are helping me understand and put in proper perspective what the relationship between these two countries are and what is the way forward on the most important issues to them, and also the Commonwealth on the larger spread. Now, there's something that you told me that's interesting to also put out there. You studied in the same university where Prince William did study.
Absolutely. So William being Charles's son, I went to the University of St. Andrews where he also studied, and actually where he.
But did he meet him in school?
No, he's much older than me. Where he also, his wife studied. Catherine, and that's where they met and are now married. And this is very interesting actually. So by the time I had enrolled at the University of St. Andrews, applications to the school had shot up significantly because he had been there before. And so you have obviously a lot of young ladies who are looking to come there, and not just to get a degree, but to hopefully meet a prince.
Possibly.
So yeah,
they didn't grab you though. That's an interesting development.
I'm a prince in my own right, but I was not what they were looking for. So
that's interesting to know. So what we were talking about moving into the area. I mean, currently there seems to be some, and it's not only the United States of America. Governments are virtually closing in. And contrary to the general principles of globalization, there seems to be a lot of nationalism happening. The U.S. rhetoric through Trump and all of that is currently the biggest deal on the continent. Is this a threat to the continued existence of the Commonwealth, for instance? Let me come to you, Abdurazak, first.
Well, I would say that's anything to relate to as a threat. In certain countries, you've mentioned probably that things are happening around the world. Partly there are major issues around immigration, there are challenges around security, and so nation states literally have a mandate to look beyond their borders and also protect their borders. Likewise, Ghana does same. Ghana has Ghana Immigration Service. You know, so every country has something to look at in terms of making sure that the people that come in.
There's an increasing change in who qualifies to enter countries. The right of admission is becoming increasingly difficult for those outside the borders of these countries. And that's the reality on the ground today.
But if you look at the UK and you compare the number of Ghanaians living in the UK and the number of Ghanaians that actually go and come back through and flow, it's quite, they're very commendable.
I agree, so, but the fear of many is that it might not be the same looking at next 10 years, and that the wind of change might move in that particular direction, straining the relationship between these countries, because really, having to exchange people is part of this important relationship.
Well, but if you look at what we are all here about, you know, that tells you that it's not going to happen anytime soon. I don't think it would, because it's about improving relationships. And if you are improving relationships, and we are talking about trade, and we are talking about other opportunities, students from Ghana would continue to go to the UK to study, like myself, like him, you know, and many others out there. And so it's quite important that people should people should actually worry less about the issues of, you know, the point that people, you know, we're talking about international system, we're talking about free movement, we're talking about people being able to move from one country to the other. So it's quite essential for such an organization, even as the Commonwealth. We need to be able to do that.
Interesting. I'll come to you, brother, on this point, but we have visuals from the forecourt of the Jubilee House of this historic moment, and you see the red carpets laid up in a very nice fashion. The people who deliver the very best of music from our security setup is also ready, and as you can see, the President of the Republic of Ghana and his wife, the Lady Rebecca, are also ready to receive this particular entourage and important people from the United Kingdom. In this case, the Prince arrived there. So the president's also ready. This is one historic thing that you should see, because as I did tell you, it happens let's say 4 decades. Many of us might not be alive by that time, but if it happens in the next 4 or so decades beyond that, you might not get a chance to watch it the way it ought to be done today. So you sure should have a better glimpse and appreciation of this historic day, and we here will also give you some background appreciation of why this relationship between the two countries, moving on to the Commonwealth, is also an important part of the dealings which we should be interested in and pushing forward. And the military has started their usual drills, the very wonderful and exquisite display they put up before 4 foreign leaders to show that we are not only independent and sovereign, we also have the Ghana Armed Forces strong and able enough to engage these. And the Speaker of Parliament who brought the man from the airport is still with him. They are marching in an elegant way towards the President of the Republic of Ghana. We understand that they will actually do an inspection along the line, and when all is said and done, the people will have a brighter appreciation of why the two and others have come to this country in one thing that does not happen consistently and does not happen as often as many would have thought it should be in this particular case. So that is the wonderful march on the red carpet. The visuals there show you security officials which are lined up by the sides. The Ghanaian delegation, led by the Reverend Professor Mike Ironokwe, the Speaker of the Republic of Ghana's Parliament, are the ones that are heading towards the president. When there's official handover, they'll proceed to exchange pleasantries and then have some conversations that we'll be giving you details of. Also on the ground there are able representatives and journalists who understand the relationship between these two countries. And when all is said and done on there, we'll come back to give you a brighter appreciation of what's been happening so far with these fine brains I have with me here in studio. So that display is still there. We understand that the military is putting up a very nice song for the march towards the president and the official handover from the speaker to the president to happen under these circumstances that you see there. And of course, they are in varied positioning that shows that they have trained and prepared for this all this while. And I did tell you that earlier today, Elton John Broby was amazed at the level of preparation towards this particular event, and it was instructive also to know that because this does not happen more often, it's a once-in-a-while event. That is why we are preparing for it. I'll take you to the grounds to follow the drill and get to appreciate what else will be happening there. We'll be coming back in studio to do the conversation later on and give you the brightest and the best coverage of this event.
Move to the left in column of threes. Left. Turn.
Yeah, sadly what you have on your screens as I speak to you now is that engagement, that very important. The head of protocol at the presidency, now the president has finally met the prince, and the prince is in that particular engagement. You see them behind the flags of the state, and surely on your screens are the opportunity to take the picture with the president of the Republic of Ghana, and also the two very important persons in this republic today who have actually captured our attention and our time the entire morning. They will surely be having engagements, and we shall be getting to know the details of that later on. Their wives join them. And in this particular case, you see they switching sides. So the very Duchess of Cornwall is also on the side of the president, and we do have the Lady Rebecca Kufuor also on the side of the prince in this particular case. The photo periods are done, and they are now moving straight into the conversation that we've been waiting for a very long time. And this historic day will not go away without we recognizing that since this is something that happens in 40 years, we sure will be relishing every single element of it. But beyond the pageantry with having to receive the man, beyond the displays on the ground, there is a critical conversation as to what the Commonwealth is going to do some years ago. So if you see what's on the screen, the prince is being shown pictures he took in 1977 when he came to the country. That is what is being shown, and the president is taking the liberty to lead the prince in this particular direction and show him these pictures and let him relish and also have that interesting experience of going back some 4 decades ago and getting to appreciate what happened when he was here in the country and also on our soil, as has been repeated today in this very historic manner. Now, that is what you have on your screens today. That's supposed to go on for some time, and other events are also lined up. I did tell you that this is a 4-day event. You have no appreciation how these 4 days are going to be. We here will spend quality time covering every element of that for you and get you to appreciate how important this very grandeur event is to many people, both in Ghana and also in the UK, and also because this gentleman you see is the head of the Commonwealth. But touch wood, if anything happens, he leads and becomes the king of the United Kingdom. That is how important he is to both countries and how important their relationship is going to be from there. Now, you do recall that Ghana's relationship with the UK has been for a very long time very important. When the Queen came around and danced with Nkrumah on those grounds, those pictures still make many Ghanaian heads turn in very nice ways, because that was first a colonial relationship which has been converted into a relationship of equal states. And that's how important this is in this particular engagement. So we shall be going back there. By here with us in studio are two gentlemen, one from the office of the London School of Economics here in Ghana, and also the other, a political officer, very competent in his own right in this particular case, from the British Embassy. And much of the conversation will happen, yes. So now they are finally going to be seated and have the conversation we've been waiting for. And the director of protocol is still in short, but yes, behind him. Oh, okay, so he's repositioned so that we see the priest very well. Nicely clothed in his very wonderful, and many will contest, elitist approach. Of course, I mean, this is a man of extraordinary standards. This is a man that right from his childhood, he's taught how to behave, how to engage the public, how to act like a man of the royal family, the very prestigious royal family in the United Kingdom. And that is the man that is seated there by the President of the Republic of Ghana. When they start a conversation, we'll be giving you a live feed of what they are saying out there. Now it's pleasantries on the ground. And that is very much what they are doing at this moment when they start talking to you and I about what is important to both nations and why they are gathered there. We shall be going back there live to get that feed and help you appreciate why this is perhaps the most important day in our history for a very long time shall remain so too, because of how these two states are important. Of course, they are being served some drinks as is currently happening now, and the lady in short now is the very person I've been talking to you about, the very wife of the prince in this case. Also by the side of the lady is your boss, Abdul Razak. Yes. The delegation from the British High Commission here in Ghana, and the understanding is that on the other side of the president, also the Ghanaian delegation, the top notch when it comes to Ghanaian diplomacy, and also Ghanaian officialdom at the executive level. So that's what we have on the screen. A chit-chat between the two. We understand they'll address many in this country. We'll bring you live shots, live videos, every single word in that conversation right here on our network. And more than just that, we'll also be bringing you a conversation in studio as we've started and talked about the Commonwealth, about the interest of those two nations and other 53 or so nations in this particular grouping, which is supposed to promote cooperation, to make sure that human rights is also protected on the continent, and also make sure that we do not have the things of the past happening. So you get to listen to them now.
It's a big honor for us to receive you in Ghana. My understanding, this is the second time you visited us. The other time was nearly, 40, 50 years ago. So we're very, very happy. Your sister was here last year. Your brother's here with us. As we so many members of your family around, yeah. But we're very happy to have you with us. You know, the relations between our two countries go back centuries. Some of it was happy, some of it was not so happy. But we're in the happier period now. And the imprint of your country on us is visible, even from the soldiers that you've just inspected. Yeah. So many aspects of our life are very, very influenced by British values, British institutional arrangements, and lots of our people who are living in your place, doing well, well treated on the vast part of the... And it's a relationship that we value. Unfortunately, trade relations have declined a little. I think that your coming here should be a signal of how we want to scale up those relations. It's important for us. And our concern, of course, is your concern. What is going to happen after the Brexit arrangement goes through? To what extent is it going to impact on us? We're determined to be a firm and strong friend of your country. And we see your coming here as an indication that you also attach a great deal of importance to your relations with Ghana. So we're very happy to have you here. And we hope that these 4 or 5 days that you're going to have here are going to be a memorable time in your life for both you. The Duchess has not been here with us before, so we're going to put our best foot forward to make sure that you enjoy your stay in Ghana. I say you have not been here before, your first time. So everybody's on their best behavior to make sure that you enjoy yourself. It's good. So welcome, very much. Welcome, very welcome, and of course that we send our best greetings to your mother, the Queen, and your father. We all enjoyed very much the excellent dinner that she hosted us to in Buckingham Palace in the presence of the Commonwealth. So it's good to have you here. Thank you. Much.
If I may say, you're charmingly.
You just heard there the President of the Republic of Ghana making clear why this particular relationship ought to last, welcoming the very man, talking about trade relationship between the two countries as we spoke here, but he made reference to the fact that there's a slight decline in that area, and we are willing to scale it up. He says Ghana remains a very good partner and a strong and firm partner of the UK in this case. He expressed the concern. What's going to happen after Brexit is also what's the concern of the nation here. And even though we are still backing them, regardless of what happens after Brexit. And he also made some historical points about relation between the two countries going back centuries, and some very happy moments and not so happy moments. And he also made a point that we are in the happy moments now. So when we're able to go back to the Jubilee House, we will let you know what the Prince has said in response to the very statements that the President of the Republic of Ghana has also said. He also expressed some overtures to the Duchess. The very claim in this case was pretty simple. That says this is your first time, we are putting up our very best behavior to make sure that we impress you, so you can come back. Even if the husband is unwilling to come back, the wife can be in the position to cajole him to get back because of the conduct of the people who actually came and served, and also treatment that she got here in this country. So we'll be talking a little bit about this because it's important, and we started the conversation along those lines too. Centuries back, former colonial master now having to engage on somewhat a level of equality, which many contest anyway, but to all intents and purposes, it looks like this is a relationship that's going to last beyond these two countries. I was talking to you about what the current nationalist fever that the Western world is getting, what that's likely to be as an influence on our part of the world. So even though the UK has not really changed policy substantially for a very long time, the fear is that when this wave of nationalism, a lot of conservatism improves, it will make it difficult for people to cooperate at the levels that they thought they could do so.
You see, the thing is, in our part of the world, nationalism is nothing new either. We've been battling with it for centuries as well. Most countries in the Commonwealth were countries that were brought together by some former colonial arrangements. And so we, like in Ghana, for instance, we have over 200 ethnic groups. And there's definitely an issue on the agenda as to, you know, whether there's a fair playing ground for all these groups, even within our country. And in the UK as well, I mean, Scotland recently, when I was in university there, was contesting for a referendum to leave the UK. So it's something that we all face in our various realms. That's why, again, something like the Commonwealth, you know, regardless of what you think about it, there are some flaws, there are some merits. But in general, the idealism of it is good enough for now. You know, there's ways that we can improve on it.
Can it withstand the storm?
That I don't know. You know, a lot of Ghanaians, royalty, the idea of the Prince and the Duchess coming is great. Royalty is not a foreign concept to us. Myself, I come from a royal home in the Ashanti region. It's in our DNA. We know what chiefdom looks like. But how long would that soft power last? That's the question. Because again, like I said, if you ask the average young Ghanaian on the streets in Choco who the Duchess of Cornwall is, he probably will not be able to tell you that. So moving forward, we hope that whilst they are here, our leaders will be able to address some of the pressing issues on the relationship, such as freer movement within the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
When our people want to travel to the UK, do they have the same access that British people do have when they're coming to our country? That's something that definitely should be addressed as well, towards making sure that this is a sustainable relationship that's fair for all.
Abdul Razak, key points: freer movement, making sure that we are in a position to say that the Commonwealth is also beneficial to us, especially in the growing world of increasingly close-ups from various states because of their relationship with others.
Yeah. Like I said, for me, I continue to see the Commonwealth as a very good thing, and it remains. I see it will be, you know, for life.
Yeah.
You know, it's a network where...
You're very optimistic.
I am indeed.
See, because politics have always shown that relationships, between states and groups like this, always try to stand the test of time. But they adapt to conditions and situations so that they can do what they said they wanted to do in times past.
You know why I'm quite optimistic about this? It's no different from the family situation, you see? So in your own family, you know, there are days where we agree and disagree, but it doesn't break us apart entirely. So I see the Commonwealth as a family.
Just that I was born into an extended family.
Yeah,
I'm more likely to a nuclear system now. So there's been major changes in my family today. That's the difference in this case.
Yeah, but even regardless of that, they are still family is family.
Okay.
You know, so
some families do feud.
Yeah, but, you know, so I see it as something that would go beyond what many are thinking. It's important that we are quite optimistic about such relationships. They are very important ones. Significance that we've seen in terms of the trade and things like that we're talking about. You're also talking about, you and I basically have had the opportunity to study in the UK. Maybe yours might not be a scholarship. Mine was a scholarship. But regardless of that, you had that kind of British education and British exposure, and you've had the quality of in terms of the education. You've talked about how there was a rise in the number of people trying to get into that. So I think that aside we traveling over there, there's also the essence of helping to, you know, British Council is here. There are other activities that is happening here, helping to make sure the Ghanaian education to become better.
So that people will not have to flood for other reasons.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you can see they're doing, it's a two-way approach. So you're helping people to bring the best practices from the UK to Ghana, whilst also helping develop and build, you know, capacities in Ghana as well. So I see it as a very important network.
The president actually expressed concern about what's going to happen after Brexit. This is not a conversation that started today. Indeed, we here in this country have been worried about what's going to be the relationship between the UK and the EU as against Ghana. For example, on standards of which food products you can put out there, we had a common one with the EU, which the UK was part of. Now, is that going to change? Are the areas of cooperation equally going to change now that the UK is leaving that particular system? Is that a genuine concern for an African country that's been engaging these two states at various levels to now say, okay, we are unsure what's going to be the future of our relationship with you, mindful of what's going to happen? Is that a genuine concern?
Absolutely. The UK themselves are absolutely concerned with what's going to happen after Brexit, the negotiations in 2020. If you look at what's happening today, I think what is critical to understand in this visit is that it's a massive PR exercise. So again, the UK has sent for their best diplomats, which is the Prince and the Duchess, some of their best diplomats, to come and kind of further play on that relationship, whether or not they don't have the power to sign MOUs because they are not, corporates or anything like that. But they still are bringing some of their senior most royals who represent leadership in the government to come and tell us that, look, I haven't been here in 30 years, I'm back. There's obviously there's a reason why he's back. So I think they are also taking it as serious as they should be.
It's interesting, and this conversation we should continue on that particular space. But as young people, then we are here. There's a lot of talk about whether or not in the next decade, 2, 3, or 4 from now, what happens to be geopolitics, which makes it possible for the UK. I mean, some decade ago, you would have thought that the UK would have left the EU. Are there uncertainties ahead that would make it close to impossible for us to close-up relations and remain committed to the UK, for example, and also to other international bodies and countries like the Commonwealth, in this case, first with the UK. Do you foresee that Ghana's relationship growing bigger, better, stronger with the UK specifically in the decade or so from now?
I mean, I'm not a fortune teller or anything, so that's a very difficult question. But if going on our current trajectory, I think we've always had some affinity to them since the colonial days. However unfortunate that was, we've always remained close to them, and that's why even today we still have that relationship with them. But again, as we've previously mentioned, there are actors out there who are definitely more aggressive in their approach to relating with Africa and Ghana specifically. China, India, once again, that's something that cannot be ignored. When it comes to trade, for instance, our Chinese brothers and sisters are walking the walk. They are signing massive deals daily when they come.
And Ghana is becoming the beneficiary of these. We have arrived from, how do you call it? How we call barter deals with them. We've had loan deals. We have now even on building our district per factory per district, and also we are looking at the big thing, 50 billion. Looks
exactly.
Like,
and I mean, if you look at even the question of sovereignty, you know, this is something anecdotally that I can speak about. A lot of people compare, for instance, how when our leaders travel to these foreign countries, when the Ghanaian president sent a delegation to China, for instance, there was a massive, you know, updo that the country did to receive him.
They sang his favorite song.
Exactly, and had, you know, pictures of him along the streets and flags and all of that. So there's that question of, you know, how equal are we being treated? I don't believe that when we go to the UK, we have the same kind of
Traffic's
reception,
the usual, but you know, we don't get to hear Oyebi sang for the president.
Exactly, but these are just critical things that, you know, on the average Ghanaian will be watching out for.
Because basically, pursue their interest.
Exactly.
So Ghana in the nearest future is also seeking to pursue its interest.
One time.
So this whole talk about Ghana beyond aid, to say that we are going to put our interest first and make sure that we're able to provide for our people and get you in the relationship that's more cooperative.
Yes.
Would that strain the relationship?
I don't think it should strain it per se, because the UK will also understand, being a sovereign state, that any country within its width will be looking to further its own interests. Ghana has done significantly, we've progressed significantly in certain indices, even though the economy is not as amazing as it could be. We've done pretty well in other things such as education, literacy, and following the tracks that they have set by global prosperity agendas. And so, yeah, we are definitely looking to progress that even further, no matter, regardless of who's going to help us do that or on our own.
Will they get better, the relationship between these two countries? I mean, visits like this are wonderful. They are the high approach of it. They are the display, the nice, he calls it the PR part. Is the symbolism that I see in all of this. It matters. But beyond the veneer of this symbolism, is that really cause for worry, or we are still on the right track? We are rolling together.
I would say we are still on the right track. We are still on the right track because it's not just about the UK, and so if you only view it from that angle, then you always be getting it wrong. It's about Ghana and the UK. So it's about, so even when countries become sovereign, and so countries are sovereign states now, Ghana, UK, yes, so independent countries. But that doesn't mean that we don't depend on each other in terms of certain things. So
the level of dependence is on one more than the other.
Well,
it hasn't reached the parasitic level yet, but it looks like one is leaning on the other.
See, it's the same thing as we are relying and trading with China and India and others. So no country, even in the UK continues to trade with China.
That's true.
US does the same with China. You know, so every country would have an opportunity to trade with the other country. So you cannot say I'm an island. You know, I want to be isolated in the world. You will not survive, because probably energy might be something that you are not an expert in, and you would need that intervention from the UK. Look at the rail system in the UK, for example. It's top class. You are talking about durability. We are talking about longevity. We are talking about important opportunities to trade, and looking at some of the things that you get from the UK. You know, when we talk about the UK, we are talking about, I'm not doing advertising, I'm just telling you that we're talking about quality, we are talking about, you know, so what did he say? Biscuits. So I think that it's important to really have the Ghanaian political elite then sit down and look at what is of importance to them as well. So in any relationship, you need to be thinking about what is it that I want, and what is it that my other partner or my counterpart needs. So this is how we do it. From barter system, those historical things, we change things because of needs. And so it's the same thing we are seeing today. They won't change. Some countries have advanced in technology, others haven't. So there are situations where people can actually share and learn best practices. You have the UK military coming here to support Ghana military on counterterrorism strategies and working together with them.
Like we're a very good country. The US is saying they are supporting us. The other countries also saying they are supporting us.
The overall idea is other countries within the region have been affected by those things. Ghana have not. You don't need to sit down and wait till you're attacked. Yeah. So we need to
I wish we could continue this conversation. And gentlemen, I'm very appreciative of your time with us here today. I enjoyed the conversation to bits. I'm sure sometime in the future, maybe when we are still alive, when you return some other time, we should have a similar conversation. Maybe have a different venue. Yes, of course. And I'm in the studio I have been here with Abdul Razak Yakubu. He's a political officer at the British High Commission here in Ghana. And also Bradley Pokua Mankwa is a co-director of the London School of Economics Africa Summit. Gentlemen, I appreciate your time today.